In the vast collective global scientific effort to find a treatment and cure for COVID-19, some have hailed the veterinary drug Ivermectin as a wonder drug. It has been the latest in a series of existing drugs repurposed to try out against the baffling disease. But what is its true value? Now, if you haven't already, you can vote in tonight's poll on Facebook and Twitter. Should public pressure determine access to unproven medicines in a global pandemic? But now, Masa Kakana tracks the latest developments in the application of Ivermectin.
When Japanese biochemist Satoshi Amora dug out a soil sample on a golf course, he had just stumbled upon a new class of drug called ivermectins. The drug was later developed as Ivermectin and would become the most profitable veterinary medicine in the world, used by farmers everywhere.
Dit is 'n baie goeie produk. Dit beskerm die dier teen parasiete.
Ivermectin also earned Omura and its co-founder the Nobel Prize in 2015. Because apart from its success with animals, Ivermectin also worked on people. Over 4 billion treatments have been donated by pharmaceutical company Merck in an ongoing effort to eliminate river blindness and elephantiasis in remote tropical regions. Ivermectin is not registered for human consumption in South Africa, so it's quite difficult to come by. On the other hand, the veterinary formulation is usually quite easily available. You just needed to go down to your local co-op. But that all changed in early January because WhatsApp groups across the Platteland were abuzz that Ivermectin could also possibly work against COVID-19. Phil Rawlins is a dairy and sheep farmer and uses Ivermectin on his herds, but suddenly it was difficult to find.
Ons sukkel om Ivermectin te kry. Die rakke is leeg en dit lyk vir my of mense nou mal gegaan het. Die koöperasie is nie meer net die plek vir die boere nie. Dis nou die stadsmense wat ook nou Ivermectin kom koop.
Professor Veni Naidu, a veterinary pharmacologist and dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Science, is astonished by the scramble for the veterinary formulation of Ivermectin.
We've received reports of Ivermectin being bought in mass volumes across the country from all the farm shops. And in fact, it's almost impossible to find Ivermectin at the moment anywhere. We have reports of farmers prescribing it to family and friends. People are selling the drug at excessively high prices. The drug is actually very cheap. You're looking at probably R1.50 a ml. And I heard reports of people selling it for up to R100 a dose. So it's created this sort of black market, and that in itself is dangerous.
By April last year, as deaths began mounting, scientists and doctors started experimenting with drugs that are already available. In Australia, they added a single dose of Ivermectin into a petri dish with the virus in a cell culture, and within 48 hours, the virus was dead. But drugs that are miracles in a petri dish can still disappoint in a human body. Hydroxychloroquine was hyped as a COVID treatment, but later found to be a dud. Professor Helen Rees, chairperson of the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, explains.
Some things might look very hopeful. We saw that with remdesivir, with a smaller study, followed by a larger study that said it didn't work. We saw that with hydroxychloroquine. Hopeful data initially from smaller studies, larger studies didn't work.
As COVID-19 overwhelmed hospitals in Argentina, Mexico, and Egypt, doctors had little to work with and turned to Ivermectin in desperation. By December of 2020, a group of international physicians who examined those early trials told a United States Senate hearing Ivermectin could be the answer to the disease.
Mountains of data have emerged from many centers and countries around the world showing the miraculous effectiveness of Ivermectin. It basically obliterates transmission of this virus. If you take it, you will not get sick.
It was largely this presentation by Dr. Corey of the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance that sent South African farmers to storm the co-ops.
As ek nou eerlik moet sê, ek dink nie dit is dangerous nie, want ek het dit self gebruik en ek voel nog goed.
There are numerous concerns when it comes to using a veterinary formulation. Firstly, it is illegal to use a veterinary formulation. Secondly, we don't know anything about this formulation.
Ons het maar op hierdie stadium die kans gevat. Ek moet sê, ek voel goed. Ek gaan eerder hierdie goed aanhou drink en hoop ek kry nie COVID nie.
Prof, talk to us a little bit more about the side effects.
We know that ivermectin in animals, firstly, can cause paralysis. Just like in the parasite, it interferes with the nerve functioning, it interferes with the brain, and you can have a progressive type of stupor. The animal appears blind, and they go into a coma, and it's very difficult to recover them from that. It's no different to the side effects you see in people.
Alarmed by what was unfolding, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority declared ivermectin illegal and banned its import. That set it on a collision course with a group of South African doctors. Dr. Buitumelo Simete Makokotlela is the CEO. Why did SAHPRA ban the importation of ivermectin?
So any drug that is not registered by us as a regulator is regarded as a drug that is being used unlawfully because you're not complying with the Medicines Act. We've got reports of, businessmen who are just bringing in this product and they're not authorized. Some of them have no experience in the pharmaceutical sector. So it does pose a risk for the public.
But the banning led to two unintended consequences. The first was that smugglers jumped on the bandwagon. Late in January, 6 Indian nationals were arrested and later charged for illegally importing around 6 million rands worth of ivermectin in their luggage.
The matter is now postponed to the 16th of March 2021. Bail is fixed in the amount of 50,000 rand.
What we saw happen after that were hundreds of thousands of tablets being smuggled into the country. That created an even bigger problem.
No, it did. It did. Our law enforcement team were inundated with inspections of these products. That's one of the reasons wherein we said, let's have a controlled mechanism where we would know who is licensed, and anyone else who's not licensed, they will then have to deal with the might of the law.
The second consequence was that patients began to self-medicate with a veterinary medicine as a prophylaxis. And as the second wave intensified, patients began to pressurize their doctors. At the time, Johannesburg doctor Paul Frankel shared his thoughts in a letter to online newspaper Daily Maverick.
The threat of death hangs in the very air we breathe. It has not felt so close or so frequent since my internship at the peak of the HIV pandemic. The punishing hours, the exhaustion, the helplessness, the fear of infection. Now we wear masks, visors and gowns, modern amulets warding off unseen demons. Government then didn't care. Now Uncle Cyril's caring presence is there to comfort. But the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAHPRA, raids medical facilities and prosecutes doctors for prescribing ivermectin, a safe drug, though partly tested on COVID-19. Again, the government appears to bungle access to the vaccine and forcibly withholds a potential treatment while we watch our patients suffocate in their own body fluids.
The million-dollar question is, does it work for COVID-19?
Well, one has to look at the data, and the data is starting to say that it probably will, and it looks like it is, but we need more data.
Dr. Frankel read extensively, independently evaluating the 2020 trial cited by the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance, as well as the data from scientist Dr. Andrew Hill, and he came to his own conclusions. So, would you say it's safe?
It's not without its complications. Every drug has its problematic side effects, and the benefit must always outweigh the risk. And it would appear, given the safety profile of ivermectin, that the potential benefit, as far as the data shows us now, and it is incomplete, but the potential benefit far outweighs the potential risk if used correctly.
What is also dividing doctors and scientists is the dosage for COVID, and only randomized clinical trials can put that to rest. Randomized clinical trials are the gold standard when it comes to measuring a drug's efficacy. In the case of ivermectin, there have been trials showing positive results, but our scientists aren't accepting them. Professor Rees says bigger trials are needed.
So ivermectin looked promising. The problem was that the studies that were then designed to evaluate ivermectin were small studies, not targeting the same groups of patients, had different indications, different dosages, different formulations. And because of that, it's been extremely difficult to make very firm conclusions.
Is that the reason why you and other South African scientists aren't accepting the results coming from all over the world?
No, it's not a matter of not accepting the results. What's happening for SAPRA, 3 different national official bodies have looked at the data. We need large studies that are properly designed to answer this question one way or another. So at the moment, we've got this situation where we can neither say that ivermectin does work, but nor can we say that it doesn't work. We also need to know if it works, is it safe in the kinds of doses that would be required to make it work? We don't have any of those answers, and against that backdrop, we need more science.
And more science is coming. Stellenbosch University is part of the Together COVID-19 Trial Consortium, and they are currently in discussions to test ivermectin and other drugs during our anticipated 3rd wave. In the meantime, SAPRA has softened its stance, and doctors can now use ivermectin on a case-by-case basis.
When this argument first started, we had different army camps, almost religious in their points of view. We will, we won't. We want to use it, you won't. And now I think people are coming to the senses and saying, well, what's the harm? And leaving it to a doctor to decide, which is what doctors are trained to do, on the balance of probability, is it going to help and is it safe?
Thank you for watching our stories here online, and please subscribe below to become part of our YouTube community and be notified when we upload our latest content.